watching the debate the other night. And I at one point, I almost went like this. Rubbed my eyes and looked back at the screen to see, is this really happening? Two 70-something-year-olds acting like 12-year-olds. And I'm sitting there going, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this is happening. Just like you did. And so then I kind of was shocked, and then I was discouraged that this is the way we're treating people. Because this is an example of what's really going on in America. When two public figures think that they can treat each other that way in a nationally televised debate, it speaks to where we are at as a nation. Now, that's not what I'm here to discuss. What I'm here to discuss is I actually started to lock in, and I was going, oh my goodness. This was a dramatic example of poor communication. So no politics. Let me give you 3 things that you can learn about the communication mistakes that happened in the Trump-Biden debate. The first thing is listening. Listening. Folks, both of them interrupted each other. I went back and watched it. Trump did more interrupting than Biden, but Biden interrupted Trump's opening statement. And I watched it back, and here's what's happening. When you don't listen, and both men were guilty of just simply not listening to the other person, then you cannot fashion an effective response. So let's bring this down to our world. Let's look relationally and professionally here. If you're talking with your wife or your teenage kid or a coworker, and we've got some turmoil, let's just call it that. We've got some lack of clarity, and we're trying to get on the same page. So again, I'm going to get outside the debate for a moment. But what can we learn? And so when we're in a situation where there's some turmoil, lack of clarity, or we're trying to dig in on something, and clearly the two people, you and the other person, aren't on the same page. If you're not listening to what they're saying and you're interrupting them to get out your next point, then whatever you say to them in response is not the most effective response, because you didn't take the time, the courtesy, and then let's just talk about effective communication. You didn't actually let them finish their thought so that you could receive what they're saying, process what they're saying, and then respond. And I'm guilty of this. We all are. We can't interrupt. We must listen to the whole statement. Got to listen. Only when we hear everything that they're saying and allow them to finish their thought are we then truly able to fashion an effective response. So in the debate and in our lives, when we're interrupting and bringing the next point, what happens is it's just ineffective on top of ineffective, on top of ineffective, on top of ineffective, on top of ineffective. Then what happens? Both parties get frustrated. There's no progress being made. So the actual communication loop, from me to you, you to me, it's broken. It's a real problem. Lesson number 2, body language. I feel like body language is the greatest area of improvement for all of us humans when it comes to communication. We tend to think of communication as I speak, I listen, but what we fail to realize is that many times the most important part of communication is body language. So I'm watching the debate the other night. Biden's talking. I want to be an equal opportunity offender here. So Biden's talking, and Trump he's down on the podium like this, making the faces. He's looking off camera. He's looking at somebody. He's looking at the moderator. He's shaking his head. Trump's talking. Biden's laughing, smiling. Both gentlemen did it. The body language, not open, not listening. And so in our lives, if, again, let's reduce again, it was an extremely awful example of communication. But in our lives, when we're having that same type of conversation I've been describing, if we have a defensive posture, an aggressive posture with our body and our face, brow is furrowed, a sarcastic, whatever that look is, if it's not one of, I'm listening to you, I want to hear what you have to say, I'm interested in us resolving this, that comes out in our body language. Pay attention to your body language. In fact, how many times, if we're being honest with ourselves, have we blown it in a conversation with somebody without ever saying a word? Our face and our body can send a message that derails the entire conversation. Here's the deal. Your body language should open others up, not shut them down. Your body language should open others up, not shut them down. Third lesson, ask questions instead of making statements. Let's go to the political debate. The other night, both of them just back and forth, taking shots at each other, insulting each other. You're lying. That's not true. You have no idea. You wouldn't be able to do this. You're the worst of all time. All that kind of stuff. It was just back and forth. These were statements that were designed as arrows. Both of them should have asked questions. Ask each other about their policies. Ask each other about their statements. Ask a question, hand it to the next person, and step back. I mean, here's what happens when you ask a question versus make a statement. When you ask a question, you are essentially hitting the ball across the net and giving them the opportunity and putting responsibility on them to hit it back. Because the audience is watching. Your coworkers are watching. Your family members are watching. And when you can ask a question, again, with the body language, you've opened somebody up. And with asking a question, you let them engage, not disengage. Because if I make a statement to somebody, it's not hitting the ball across the net and allowing them to hit it back. It's pushing them in a corner. And they're immediately going to resist and try to come back. So you can allow someone to engage, or you make them disengage with the conversation and defend themselves. So if you want to make a point, ask a question that leads the audience or leads the other person into engagement. And it takes them down a path, but they are engaging. You've given them the opportunity to engage. That didn't happen the other night. It was statement after statement after statement, and then what happened? It was defense, 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 and then after a while, you keep putting somebody on the defense. Guess what they're going to do, Joe? They're going to swing at you. You keep throwing statements and statements and statements. They get defensive, and then they attack back. And now, again, we've broken the line of communication from me to you, you to me. Now it's a fight. And I understand it's politics, but the point is we can learn from this stuff. And while that was the extreme example of poor communication, it also is the example of how we all left that thing going, ugh, good grief. I talked to supporters of both gentlemen, avid supporters that night. I reached out to them. What'd you think? They were both embarrassed. Still supportive of their guy, but everybody felt like that was just a big, giant embarrassment. Don't be an embarrassment. Don't cut yourself short when it comes to communication. Understand those 3 lessons, and you will have much better communication with a whole lot better results.